everyone, welcome back. So this is my very first tutorial video and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you do like it, then maybe I'll do like a hair and makeup tutorial if you want. If you like my makeup, I don't know. Do you like it? So a few months ago I had my birthday party and I decided to have a Disney party because, you know, I'm so cool. I decided to go as Esmeralda and I couldn't find a cheap Esmeralda costume anywhere, so I decided to make my own corset. And this is the tutorial video for that corset because I recorded the whole kind of process of making it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. It's not the easiest tutorial, but anyway, here you go. What you guys will need to be able to make this corset is some blue fabric, yellow ribbon, pins, scissors, blue and yellow thread, at least one needle, and if you don't know your measurements, you're going to need some measuring tape. So for this method, you're also going to need a corset pattern. These are pretty easy to find at any kind of fabric store, or if you can't find one in a fabric store, you might be able to get one online. So the first step's pretty easy, you just have to cut out the patterns. This can take a while, so just kind of be patient with it. On the pattern you'll find different sizes, and that's why you've got lots of different lines, so make sure you pick the right size for you. Once you have all your patterns cut out, you want to lay them down on the fabric. Some of them will say that you need to cut two, and if that's the case, then you want to fold your fabric in half. Make sure when you're laying it out that you lay it kind of going with the grain rather than against the grain of the fabric. You'll see a little arrow, and that's basically indicating which way you want the grain to be going. What I'm doing here is just pinning the pattern to the fabric. And pinning can be tricky, but just have patience and try not to stab yourself, which I did a lot. Next you're going to cut out the fabric with the pattern. So I always cut it out roughly first. And this is what your finished pattern cutting should look like. What you want to do is line them all up and pin them all together. You should kind of see the shape of the corset taking form now. So what I did here was I pinned the fabric together on both sides just to make sure that it was definitely right before I started sewing it. It's easier to use a sewing machine, of course, but I didn't have a sewing machine, so I've sewn this by hand. That's why it looks a little bit messy, but don't worry, no one's going to actually see your sewing because it'll be on the back of the corset. As you can see, I like to use a lot of pins just to make sure it's right. This is what it should look like when it's done. It's not the neatest looking, but no one's going to see because this is the back of the corset. And this is what the front will look like when you've finished patching them all together. Obviously by this point the fabric's pretty crinkled and not very nice looking, so what we can do to fix that is iron it. So you want to make sure you iron all of it, and it'll look really good whenever it's done. It also helps whenever you're doing the next part because you want your fabric to be straightened out as it's going to be when you wear it. Make sure you iron both sides because it just makes it a lot easier to sew things whenever everything's straight and not crinkled. So the next bit can be a little bit tricky. What we want to do is basically tidy it up a bit, get rid of all these loose ends. What I'm doing is folding over the fabric. So the tricky part is getting it straight. There's probably a better way to do this, but I have no design experience at all, so I'm just making this up as I go along. So fold the fabric over basically to the back and then sew it as you have done with the rest. Again, with a sewing machine this will be a lot quicker and a lot neater. But this method doesn't really matter because no one's going to see. Especially if you can find a thread that is exactly the same color as your fabric, which is what I did here. Again, I'm using a lot of pins, especially for this part, because you need to make sure that it's straight. This is what it should look like when it's finished. As you can see, it's a lot neater. So all that's left to do is put on the yellow ribbon to make the yellow stripes of Esmeralda's corset. What I've done is just lay the ribbon across the fabric, kind of measured it to the corset and then made it a bit longer because we're going to have to sew it around the back to make sure that it's pretty neat. So just repeat this process 5 times, make sure all your ribbon is the right length. Then again, pin it to your fabric. I know you're probably sick of pinning by now, but hey, that's life. Then of course take your yellow thread and sew these bits on as neat as you can, because this bit will be seen. Again, sewing machines help a lot. Next we have the holes for the lacing at the back. What I did here was just cut some kind of triangular chunks out of the fabric. This isn't actually the best way to do it because it can rip. What you really need are some eyelets and an eyelet puncher. I just didn't actually have those. And this is what it looked like whenever I had the finished product. I just paired it with a kind of white baggy shirt and a purple skirt. And I also tried to do her hair and makeup. Okay everybody, so that's it, and if you liked it, please comment and subscribe and like and all that stuff, and hope I see you next time.